Thank you. Thanks so much. Appreciate y'all. I was going to check and see when you jumped off if you were going to do a good PLF. You know? But he left me his check. There you go. There you go, Mr. Chairman. Look, it's a pleasure and an honor to be here. It's a pleasure and honor to be back in North Carolina, where I spent 5 great years of my military service down at Fort Bragg, and then for whatever reason, I think I pissed somebody off in the Army, and they sent me to Camp Lejeune for 3 years. You want to talk about having no self-esteem? Be the only Army doggy on a Marine Corps base. When the Lance Corporals come up to you and say, Lieutenant Colonel, drop and do push-ups. I say, okay, yeah, all right. But it's fantastic to be here. And, you know, with all you racists and sexists and xenophobes and Islamophobes and homophobes, we're just all here. Matthew, you just surrounded yourself with a bunch of folks that are nothing but a bunch of deplorables, you know, from what they said. But I will tell you one thing. If there's going to be a fight, I would rather be with you all in the basket of deplorables with a bunch of no good, worthless, scum-sucking, sorry sons of a you-know-what that's from the left. I'm honored to have one of my former bosses from when I was down at Fort Bragg, Colonel Ron Stelmazic, and his wife Marilyn, who came up from Fayetteville. Thank you so much for being here, sir. I want to talk to you all maybe about 25 minutes, because there's one thing that I hate when you come to these things. You've got your belly full, you got your feet warm, you just had an auction, and everybody's starting to get the, you know, the food coma thing going on. So the attention span of most human beings is about 25 to 30 minutes. That's why I said 25 minutes, and then I want to hear what's on your mind. You know, we'll have an open mic. I guess they can use the mic or whatever, and I want to know what your questions are. But you're at the center of a fight here in North Carolina. And it's a fight that we must win if we're to do one single thing. Because see, tomorrow is a very important day for the United States of America. And most people will not think about what tomorrow is. Most people will just say it's college football Saturday. And we'll tune in to see our favorite college football team play and take the field. But September the 17th, 229 years ago, a simple document was signed. It's the United States Constitution. And we're here to honor the men and women who did one single thing. They raised their right hand and they said that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. And if you truly believe in that oath, whether you're in uniform or out of uniform, there is no statute of limitations. You continue to fight for that thing which embodies us as the American people. But when I think about where we are today, when I think about where you are in North Carolina, when I think about one of the great battles of the Revolutionary War was fought right here in this state, not too far away, right down I-40 at the Guilford County Courthouse. When we had Matthew stand up with the young woman who's a World War II veteran, this is what it is about for us. We pass on to subsequent generations that which is better than what was left for us. And so think about 229 years ago, when Benjamin Franklin came out of Independence Hall, Constitution Hall, whatever you want to call it. He was met by a woman that was a Philadelphia socialite, well known in the political circles. Her name was Mrs. Powell. And Mrs. Powell stepped up to Benjamin Franklin. And she asked him the one single question that should resonate with each and every one of us 229 years later. She said, well, doctor, what is it that we have? A republic or a monarchy? And Franklin replied very succinctly, a republic if you can keep it. It is not up to the state senators. It's not up to the members of the state house. It's not up to the chairman of the North Carolina GOP or the chairman of the Wake County GOP. Each and every one of you, if you are an American, you have a responsibility to keep this republic, to keep it intact. First of all, if you see those man on the streets interviews, most Americans don't even know what a dadgum republic is. You go out and you talk to them, and they don't know what the three branches of government are. They don't know what separation of powers, co-equal branches of government. They don't understand what individual sovereignty and the rule of law is. The most important thing that we must do starting right now, starting today, is in our homes, in our churches, in our communities. We need to teach people about the greatness of the United States of America. We need to tell people tomorrow, before you head off to your tailgates and everything, and I hope Appalachian State does beat Miami. The little jackasses almost beat my school, Tennessee. I weren't happy about that. But before you go up to your tailgates, I want you to sit down with your children, with your grandchildren, and your families. You tell them what happened 229 years ago. Because when we stop telling those stories, then the next thing you know, someone can stand up and say, we're 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America. And people clap, and people cheer, because they have no freaking clue about what it means to live in this great nation. When we stand up and we have people that are telling our children about wealth redistribution, telling our children about you can have free college, you can have free everything, they have no idea. The understanding that that is not one of the fundamental principles and values of this great nation. It is our responsibility, as Franklin challenged us. When you look at what the NCAA, what the ACC is doing here, you need to make a stand. I don't know all the intricacies of HB2, but I'm just a simple boy born in Georgia. And if you telling folks you need to go to the same bathroom as it corresponds on your birth certificate, what's so dadgum hard about that? But what you see here is economic terrorism. People that are telling you you don't have the right to stand up for principles and values, that we need to punish you for that. Unfortunately, down in Georgia, Governor Nathan Deal caved in. So the entire nation is looking to see will you knuckle under. And if you remember the men who stood there at Guilford County Courthouse that fought so that we can be here tonight in Raleigh, North Carolina, you will not knuckle down. You will explain to people what HB2 means. You will explain to people why it is about individual rights, why we don't need a federal government that makes a determination where people can go to the bathroom. I wish we had a federal government that would go out there and come up with the policies and the vision by which we can send these special operators out there and whack the crap out of these Islamic jihadists. But this is something else. We're here all as Republicans. But I bet if I were to go out and ask each and every one of you tonight, in 1854, when the Republican Party was established, why was it established? There's only one thing. It was about individual freedom. It was about liberty. It was about so that a guy like Allen West, born in the inner city of Atlanta, Georgia, could grow up one day and command a battalion in combat. And he can go on and be a member of the United States House of Representatives and serve a district that was 92% white, serve a district that had the highest per capita income zip code in the United States of America, Palm Beach Island. They would get calls from Rush Limbaugh because he was one of my constituents. See, that doesn't happen anywhere else but in the United States of America, because we formed a party, a group, a vision that understood the commitment to those simple words that Thomas Jefferson wrote, that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, and of these being life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But if we don't understand who we are fundamentally as a nation, if we don't understand who we are fundamentally as a party, then the party that has never stood for individual freedom and liberty will be the party that slowly but surely, through incrementalism, through progressive socialism, will be the party that fundamentally transforms the greatest experiment in liberty and freedom that the world has ever known. There's a reason why people come to the shores of the United States of America, because they know that no matter where you come from, no matter where you are born, you can achieve your dreams, your goals, your objectives, whatever your heart's desire is. But all it takes is individual drive and determination to do that. See, when I think about the Democrat Party, when I go back and read the history of the Democrat Party, I know that there were very few Democrats that voted for the 13th Amendment. There were very few Democrats, almost none, that voted for the 14th Amendment. There were very few Democrats, none, that voted for the 15th Amendment. When I think about the first blacks who walked on Capitol Hill as members of the Senate, many of the members of the House of Representatives, there's a great book out there that you can read called Capitol Men. They were not from the Democrat Party. Before me being the black Republican representative from Florida, the previous black Republican from Florida was Josiah T. Walls, 1873 to 1876. It should not have taken till 2010 for the next one to come along. But if we don't fundamentally understand who we are as a party, then that's what happens. And so at the turn of the century, when the Republicans lost their majority in the House and the Senate up on Capitol Hill, that's when you got Jim Crow laws. That's when you got segregation. That's when you had lynchings. It was a Democrat president by the name of Woodrow Wilson who had the screening of the movie Birth of a Nation, which historically chronologized the founding of the Ku Klux Klan, which was not done by Republicans, it was done by Democrats. It was the Democrat Party that was the party of poll tests and poll taxes and literacy tests. It was the Democrat Party that has always sought to repress the people of the inner cities. See, when I was born in 1961, I had a mother and father. And in that inner city neighborhood of the old Fourth Ward that gave us Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., it was rare that you saw a child without mother and father. Because back then, 75 to 77% of black households had mother and father in the home. But then in 1965, a Democrat president came up with a real great idea. He said that if a woman has a child out of wedlock, the government will provide her a check regardless of how many children she has out of wedlock, but there's one caveat. She cannot have a man in the home. That was Lyndon Johnson. So what was 75 to 77%? What was the foundation, the fundamental basis of the inner city community, the black community? The family. Today, only 24% of black kids have mothers and fathers in the home. And you look what is happening in Chicago. You look what is happening in Detroit. You look at what is happening in Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, Raleigh, Durham, Charlotte, anywhere across the United States of America. But we don't talk about it because we allow people like Hillary Clinton and others to come out and start calling us names, and we get upset and we kind of recoil back. The reason why they call us these names is because we continue to react to it. And the only reason why they're calling these names is because finally there's a Republican presidential candidate that is challenging them in the inner city communities. He has kicked the hornet's nest. And you know what we need to do? We need to stop the hornet's nest right with it. Because we need to tell people the truth about who has always been about your suppression and your oppression. It is not this party, the Grand Old Party, the party of Abraham Lincoln that was started in 1854 to end individual bondage. It has always been the party of the jackass, the Democrats. It is not us who is out there standing up against school choice, school vouchers, and the ability to have equality of opportunity through a quality education. We need to tell them that it was their first black president that canceled the DC school voucher program. We need to tell people that it was the first black attorney general who brought a lawsuit against the state of Virginia for their school voucher program. We need to tell them that it's the avowed socialists, Bill de Blasio, the mayor of New York City, who said that he would end charter schools in New York City, of which one of the highest performing schools in New York City is a charter school in Harlem called Success Academy. But see, if we don't own up to the challenge that Franklin gave us, if we don't even understand who we are principally as a party, then the other side to define us and tell us who we are, and the next thing you know, the media jumps on and there's all this disinformation out there. The American people need this party to stand up and restore this Constitution, to restore this republic, to restore a sense of individual sovereignty and liberty, to make sure that our small businesses can grow. Can you imagine how it is that the American people could allow someone to become president of the United States of America, who in Roanoke, Virginia in 2012 stood up and said that if you own a business, you didn't build that? That is the most antithetical statement to American individual indomitable entrepreneurship. In 240 years, it wasn't government that made this nation that is great. It's all of the people that I'm looking at. It's our forefathers and foremothers. It will be the children that come on after us. Why? Because they have an ability to pursue their happiness. But if we don't understand that there are people out there trying to tell us that they can guarantee our happiness, you tell me where that has ever worked anywhere in the world. That's why we need you here in North Carolina. And let me tell you something that I don't like. I hate the circular firing squad. Either you stand for the Constitution, you stand for this country, and there is really two very clear and distinct choices. But we don't need to be shooting each other, Mr. Chairman. And don't get out there and tell me who you think should really be the one that can lead this country, because you maybe don't know. In 2012, almost 30 million Christians decided they want to sit it out. 7 million were registered voters and didn't even go out to vote. The others weren't even registered to vote. And look at what you got. You have our Christian brothers and sisters in the Middle East, beheadings, crucifixions, young Christian girls being sold into slavery, all because people cut off their nose to spite their face. You don't know who God may use to restore this nation. Because if you know something about the Bible, you can read and see that God used Cyrus. God used Nebuchadnezzar. God found a woman by the name of Esther and told her, you were made for a time such as this, and she influenced Xerxes' heart to save the people. So you don't know who can be brought up. But you have a challenge to keep this republic. You know, we just announced these special operators over here. How many people know that just back in August, there were 2 individuals that were taken hostage from the American University in Kabul. One was an Australian, one was an American teacher of English. We actually had the intelligence of where they were being held. And our special operators were out on a rescue mission to go and get those individuals. But the person that's the commander-in-chief of the United States of America was too busy on vacation to approve that mission. And he finally got around to it 24 hours later. And the steel, the resolve of men that are represented at that table was that they still went out on that mission. And they killed the Taliban that was there, but the hostages were gone. You mean to tell me that this country would accept that as leadership? You mean to tell me that this country will look at someone that is running for president that abandoned Americans to die for 13 hours when the live feed of a drone was letting you know exactly what was going on there, and then still afterwards lied about it? There is no way in the Sam Hill that Hillary Clinton can be president of the United States of America and commander-in-chief. You've got to tell that story here in Raleigh-Durham and Wake County. You've got to tell that story all over the state of North Carolina. George Soros' money is here, and I kind of know about George Soros and his money because he put $5 million against me in 2012. But they can be defeated if we have the courage to make the stand against them. When I was down at Fort Bragg, our brigade had a motto. It was tough, proud, disciplined. When I was a battalion commander in Iraq, I told my soldiers, when you get into a firefight, you got two choices. You either get to fighting or you get to dying. That's the choice you have here in North Carolina. This is a nice evening. Everyone looks great. Everyone's fantastic. It was a good meal, good chow. It wasn't an MRE, so I appreciate that. But when you leave out of here tonight and the sun comes up tomorrow, if you are not inspired and understand that tomorrow is 229 days that defines us as an American constitutional republic, if that cannot get you inspired to go out for these next 50 some odd days, to say, I will stand in the gap, I will make sure that we pass on a better America to young Matthew and to our other children and grandchildren. You know, I was sitting here with a young lady, and I shared with her a little piece of ink I got on my forearm here. It says two words in Greek, molon lave. And she asked me, what does that mean? And I said, well, you remember that movie 300 where all the guys had the real cut, you know, abs and everything? I just want you ladies to know that was Photoshop. That wasn't really. I don't know. I ain't got abs like that no more. But back in 490 BC, when 300 brave Spartans stood in the gap at Thermopylae, and they were met by the hordes of Xerxes. And on the first day of that battle, when Xerxes said to the Persians, said to the Spartans, lay down your weapons. Leonidas, standing there as a leader, a true combat warrior, a leader with his men, replied in those two words, molon lave, come and take. You've got to have that emblazoned in your heart. Because there are people that are going to try to take this state away, and in taking this state away, they're going to try to take this country away. And you got to tell them, come and take it. You got to tell them that you're tough enough, you're proud enough, you're disciplined enough that you're going to meet them on the battlefield. Not a battlefield of bullets, but it's a battlefield that is just as important because it's an ideological battlefield that will define us for future generations. That's what I need you to do when you leave out of here, because the clock is ticking. And as the chairman said, I want to run up the score. Because when I was down at Camp Lejeune, I had a Marine First Sergeant by the name of Jim Rifle to teach me a lesson that I will never forget. He said, if you ever find yourself in a fair fight, it's all because your tactics suck. I don't want you to just squeak by and win in North Carolina. I want you to drive it through them like Sherman drove through Georgia. I want you to tell them that don't ever come back to North Carolina. Don't ever mess with our governor. Don't ever mess with our Senate. Don't ever mess with our House, because we're going to keep this House. We are going to do what Franklin challenged us to do. We're going to keep this republic. And we're going to send something and set something up for our children that is the complete difference from what you want to do. Let me close by sharing with you a little tidbit that a mentor of mine, who was the Assistant Division Commander of the 4th Infantry Division. He retired Lieutenant General Rick Lynch. He was the Commanding General of the 3rd Infantry Division during the surge in Iraq. And General Lynch told us, battalion commanders, back in 4ID, he said, life is all about living your dash. And I didn't understand that, but he explained it. He said, when you are gone, on your tombstone will be a start date and an end date. And the only thing in between is a simple little dash. And when people go and see your final resting place, your gravesite, they've got to remember what you accomplished in that simple little dash. Thomas Paine said it very well in December of 1775, when he said, these are the times which try men's souls. When the summer soldier And the Sunshine Patriot will, in this crisis, shrink from their duties. But to those who will make a stand, they will deserve the love and admiration of all men and women. Remember the stand that the Carolinians made at Guilford County Courthouse. Remember the stand that was made 229 years ago when they established the rule of law for this great constitutional republic. Remember the stand that has been made throughout the history of this great nation in just 240 years. Remember the stand that these young men and women are making today on freedom's ramparts. It's worth the fight. And it's worth people looking at our dash and remembering that the greatest nation that the world has ever known was not lost on our watch. God bless you all. What are your questions? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.